You know it is coming before you are even fully awake. There is a moment, just a fraction of a second, in that soft space between sleeping and waking, where you are simply yourself, without any of it, and then the awareness arrives and with it the familiar tightening, the deep low ache that has made its home in your lower back and refuses to be evicted. You lie still for a moment, not because you are resting, but because you are preparing. You have learned through long and uncomfortable experience that the transition from lying down to standing is not a simple thing anymore. It is a process that requires strategy, patience, and a particular willingness to go slowly that the younger version of you would have found completely incomprehensible. You roll to your side first, always your side, never straight up, because you learned that lesson the hard way, and you feel the familiar protest of muscles that have spent the night contracting around a spine that does not appreciate what the years have done to it. You push yourself to sitting, and for a moment you just sit there on the edge of the bed, in the grey early light, hands on your knees waiting for the back to decide whether today will be a manageable day or a difficult one, because it gets to decide that now, and you do not. You stand, carefully, slowly, one hand on the nightstand, and the first 3 steps to the bathroom are the worst 3 steps of the entire day. The morning set the tone for everything that follows, and the tone has not been good for a long time. You have stopped bending down to pick things up off the floor in one smooth motion. Now you lower yourself in stages, one hand finding something to hold, the other reaching slowly, the whole operation requiring a level of planning that a dropped pen should not require. You have stopped sitting in certain chairs, the low ones, the soft ones, the ones that require real effort to get out of, and you have rearranged your life around this without quite acknowledging that that is what you were doing. You have stopped volunteering for things that involve prolonged standing, the cooking at family dinners, the waiting in lines, the slow walks around the farmer's market that you used to love on Saturday mornings. The pain has not taken your life. You want to be clear about that. You are still here, still doing most things, but it has edited, quietly and persistently, line by line, until the version of your life you are living is a somewhat reduced draft of the one you intended. You have not told anyone how much has changed, not your children, not your doctor, because naming it would require measuring it, and measuring it might produce a number you are not ready to face. And the thing that troubles you most is not the pain itself, pain you can manage, pain you have learned to live around, but the direction of travel. Because it has not been getting better, it has been getting worse, slowly and steadily, and you have been watching it happen and telling yourself it will plateau, and it has not plateaued. It happens on a Wednesday morning in early spring, in your own backyard, doing something you have done 1,000 times. You bend down to pull a weed from the garden bed, your wife's garden, the one you have maintained for her since she passed, the one you will maintain until you cannot, and something in your lower back seizes in a way it has never quite seized before. You straighten up slowly, very slowly, and you stand there in the garden with your hand pressed to your lower back, and you look at the flower bed, and something passes through you that is larger than pain. You think about your wife, the way she used to kneel in this exact spot, hands in the dirt, completely at home, and you think about the fact that you promised yourself you would keep it going, and you think about what it will mean if your back makes that promise impossible to keep. You go inside, and you sit at the kitchen table, and for the first time you let yourself feel the full weight of what has been accumulating, not just the pain, but everything the pain has been slowly taking. You thought about the farmer's market, and the low chairs, and the cooking, and the bending, and all the small quiet surrenders that had seemed so reasonable at the time, and sitting there with the garden outside the window, you understood for the first time what they had added up to. And you decide, sitting there, with the garden waiting, and your wife's roses just beginning to bud outside the window, that you are not done yet, and that not being done requires you to actually do something. Your physical therapist, a practical woman named Carol, who had been working with older bodies for 25 years, and had absolutely no patience for unnecessary suffering, looked at the way you moved, and told you something nobody had ever told you before. She said, "Your back is not the problem. Your back is the place that hurts, but the problem is what happens to your spine while you sleep, and in those first minutes before you move." She explained that during sleep, the muscles supporting your spine, already working harder than they should because of years of accumulated tension and postural habits, contract and shorten through the night, so that by morning, every disc and joint is compressed and stiff in ways that cold movement makes dramatically worse. She told you that the worst thing you could do was exactly what you had been doing, lying still, steeling yourself, and then standing up cold, because cold movement into a compressed spine was like trying to open a door that had been painted shut. What your back needed, she told you, was not to be endured. It needed to be gently woken up before you asked it to bear weight, with 3 specific movements done slowly in bed before your feet ever touched the floor. First, both knees drawn slowly to your chest, held for 30 seconds, the lumbar spine gently decompressing after hours of compression, the muscles beginning to remember their length. Second, both knees together, dropped slowly to one side, then the other, a gentle rotation that woke the facet joints and the deep rotator muscles that had spent the night in a fixed position. Third, a slow pelvic tilt, pressing the lower back gently into the mattress and releasing 10 times, teaching the deep stabilizing muscles to activate before they were called upon to hold you upright. 3 minutes, Carol said. That is all. 3 minutes before you stand up, and your morning will be a different morning. The first morning you tried it, you did not quite believe it would work. A lifetime of experience had made you appropriately skeptical of simple solutions, but you did it anyway, because Carol had seemed like a woman who did not offer things she was not sure of. You drew your knees to your chest and held them and felt something in your lower back that you had almost forgotten was possible, a small quiet easing, like a fist unclenching in slow motion. You did the rotation and the tilts, and when you finally sat up on the edge of the bed 3 minutes later, exactly as she had said, the morning was different. Not pain-free. Carol had not promised pain-free, and you had not expected it, but different in a way that mattered, softer, more manageable, a morning you could move into rather than brace against. By the end of the first week, the 3 minutes had become the first thing you did every morning, before you checked your phone, before you thought about the day, before anything, because you had learned what happened when you skipped it, and you did not want to learn that lesson twice. By the end of the second week, you bent down to pick something up off the kitchen floor, a piece of fruit that had rolled from the counter, and you were halfway back upright before you realized you had done it without planning, without staging, without the careful multi-step operation it had become. You stood there in the kitchen, holding a piece of fruit, and you laughed, a short, quiet, private laugh, because it was such a small thing and it felt enormous. 6 weeks after the morning in the garden, you went back outside. The roses your wife planted along the back fence had come in while you were recovering, pink and fully open, exactly the way she used to like them, and you stood there for a moment, just taking them in. Then you knelt down, slowly, carefully, but all the way down, and you pulled the weeds from around the base of the roses, one by one, your hands in the soil, your back doing its job without complaint. You were there for 40 minutes, you know, because you checked afterwards, surprised, and when you stood up in one motion, and you looked at the garden, and it looked the way it used to look when she was here. You said something to her then, quietly, the way you do, and whatever you said you meant it completely. And if you are lying in bed right now, already bracing for the morning before you have even moved, already dreading those first steps, already negotiating with your own body before the day has started, I want you to hear this. 3 minutes is all it takes. 3 quiet minutes, still in bed, before your feet touch the floor, and your mornings can become something you move into rather than something you survive. Your back is not finished, and neither are you, and the garden is waiting. If this story felt like yours, hit subscribe. Every week there is a new one, and someone out there needs to hear it.